There was a guy that I met at the gym, and he had these really, really, really well-developed quads. Like, I'm talking abnormally large. Natural lifter, all that stuff. He's got no reasons to do anything like that. You know, the guy works in security, has a family, all that. Normal guy. Like, he doesn't give a crap about fitness or YouTube or TikTok. Normal guy, my age, maybe even a bit older. Just doing his thing, you know, doesn't show off, wears jumpers, all that stuff. We get talking, we get chatting over the following months, years. We exchange ideas every time we hit the gym together. And one day he wears shorts. And he was coming like from some sort of injury. He was trying to lose a bit of weight. And he had some sort of like injury, I think, to the shoulder or something like that. He wasn't feeling the best. So he's kind of not deadlifted or squatted or benched for a long period of time. And we start chatting. I'm squatting in the gym. This is maybe going back 6, maybe even 9 months ago. And I go to him, damn, man, I never realized you got such huge freaking quads, man. How the hell are your quads that large? The hell? Like, you know, when somebody's quads are so large that like the muscle is going over the knee, like he's got the medialis and the lateralis is hanging, like abnormally large quads, and also calves. Just thick legs, man. Normal looking guy up top, whatever, just developed legs. And his best deadlift to that point, maybe he's improved by now, probably not, given the fact that he's not really determined for like strength. He was trying to lose weight and whatever. And the best deadlift that he did was 240 or 250 or something like that. Now, he was weighing around 100 kilos, I reckon, at the time. He was a little bit shorter than me, but fuller. And I think he squatted 180 or 190, something like that. 180, I think it was. Bench press 140. Similar numbers to me, but I don't have half of the tissue that he has. I look at my quads and they're just a normal leg, man. It's just a normal leg, normal calves, normal hamstrings, normal freaking everywhere. But he has that tissue. He's got so much tissue. And I said to him, dude, how the hell did you get this? And he said, before I even touch weights, I used to cycle a lot. He used to just ride bikes a lot. Fuck, man. You're telling me that you got quads like that from cycling? I said, yeah, man. It's just the same my calves. The reason I'm telling you this story is that in this last year, I've kind of been on this trend of thought of an experimental kind of wave to try and develop my quads to see if that's going to have an effect on my strength. And resoundingly, profoundly, I have not had the effect that I was hoping that I was going to have. Compare this stretch to last year's stretch where I did basically pure posterior chain. We're talking RDLs, heavy RDLs for sets of 5 with 200 kilos, that kind of thing. Lots of back extensions, back raises on the 45, on the 90 degree, you know, GHD, whatever. Did all of that, and all I was thinking is posterior chain, posterior chain. That was kind of the time where all I was thinking was Louis Simmons was listening to his freaking podcasts every day, and it was making a lot of sense to me, and I did that. It was going great. And then what ended all of that was, like, the strength was getting really, really high. I was pushing some really good numbers, hit 265 on the deadlift, started doing wonderful things, and then I started getting hip pain. And when that happens, I go back to the drawing board and I reassess, and I go from there again. So last year's success was a lot better compared to this year. I said, I think in previous video, that this whole year, I've added 5 kilos to my front squat. That's the only exciting news that I've had this whole year. 185 is now my front squat. Which, okay, after all of that quad work, you're telling me 5 kilos in the front squat? Well, damn, I was hoping a bit more than that, especially if I'm, focusing solely on something, like this, and the results haven't been the greatest. And so then I start pulling all of this all of these scenarios, these stories that I've kind of seen throughout my life of a guy like that in the gym with the big quads, to other people as well who have more muscle tissue but no strength, I always kind of think to myself, how the hell does this guy not squat 250? I mean, he's got trunks for legs. Obviously, I'm not trying to make a silly assumption that that's all you need. You obviously need core strength, back strength, all of that stuff. It's just crazy for me to think that. And then I start kind of going into the layers of this, okay? One thing that I know about quads is that if they become overactive, you will become weaker, because overacting quads will deactivate your glutes. Now let me explain that. That might not make sense to you, but I've given this a lot of thought. Maybe I'm wrong, but hear me out with my thought process. One of the quads is rectus femoris. That guy is a biarticulate muscle, meaning it crosses both the knee and the hip. So he can extend the knee, and he can extend the hip. Why is that important? Sorry, flex the hip. So he extends the knee, flexes the hip. The reason why that is important is because if that muscle gets tight, you will go into anterior pelvic tilt, which means you go into this, right? You stick your butt out like this, right? That means that the glutes have to let go for that posture to be assumed. So now you have a situation where you're focusing on your quads, but one of the quads impacts the hip position as well, and that hip position puts you into a position where the biggest freaking muscle in the body, the biggest driver in the deadlift and the squat, becomes deactivated or becomes inhibited, meaning it becomes it's almost like the body's resisting that muscle from really firing. And so what the hell have we done? We've gone one step forward, one step back. We've gained a bit of horsepower in the quads, and we've lost a whole bunch of horsepower in the glutes, because the glutes can't even fire because they're locked out of the place. They're locked out. They're in anterior pelvic tilt. And if you know about glute movement in action, they posteriorly pelvic tilt. So your pelvis becomes like this, right? I don't know if you can see that. So this is anterior, this is posterior, right? So you want the posterior pelvic tilt to happen for you to know the glutes are really working. So this is where I start to get into trouble with the quads, because so much focus has happened, and I have added quad size, not crazy amounts, but I've added size. I feel it, and when I feel it, I'm like, damn, I live with these legs every day. If I've noticed something different, then something must have happened. It's not like I'm seeing myself every 3 months, and then you can kind of like, oh, definitely, you know. So definitely things have changed in the quads, but the strength hasn't been there. But during this whole period, I have struggled with anterior pelvic tilt, and I know that because in the mornings I wake up and I'm like, God, my back, man. I feel like I'm stuck in extension. I'm like stuck in this position, man. And it's brutal, because you know, I feel like that also contributes to me being bloated, because I'm so out of alignment that my guts start to get a bit slower, you know, in peristalsis, stops, I get bloated. And when I think about some other hip flexors, you got the rectus femoris, you also got the iliacus and the psoas, the iliopsoas, right? The TFL is also in that region, also a hip flexor, I think it's a hip internal rotator and flexor. So then you have like this cascade of shit going on, because the rectus femoris is a big muscle. So that can overpower a lot of these things, especially if you're squatting every day. And with the focus on quads, all of a sudden you have a situation where you're so locked out of your glutes that of course they start to get inhibited. And then not to mention that we sit down a lot, blah, 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 sit on the glutes, they become sleepy and locked out. They got no chance. So now I'm thinking about that guy in the gym, and I'm like, he's got these big ass quads. What if he's trying to squat purely with his quads because his glutes are just locked out? So then it's like, I mean, I don't know his full story. I mean, these are some thoughts that kind of float in and out. I mean, if he was here, I'd love to test him out to see his ability in hip extension, his ability in internal, external rotation of the hip, and to see what his body actually is doing. Maybe he's not locked out. Maybe he just doesn't have enough specificity in training. It doesn't train the nervous system. Maybe it's also that. But looking at the tissue that he has, dude, his quads are humongous. I can't, I'm making it sound like he's Tom Platz. Extraordinary legs, right? So this is where strength becomes weird, in the sense that when people say, just get more tissue, man, just get bigger and you'll get... It might not be the full story, dude. And this is our experience. I think a lot of guys have also had this experience. Like, you add size to a particular muscle group and you feel like you don't get anywhere. Like, what the hell is going on? And I think it's because it's physics. If you start to add tissue and then you start to get locked out of optimal or the best possible leverages, then you are essentially a less efficient machine. You know, physics speaking. I squatted today, front squat, I hit 120. I did bench press before that. Lots of bench pressing, about an hour, if not an hour and a half of freaking bench pressing. Yeah, something like that. I did 13 sets of 10. Elbows are feeling great, everything's feeling great. Loving the pump, loving the size and whatnot. It's all, you know, working great. Started squatting, felt like shit again. Hit quads yesterday a lot. Surprise, surprise, I wake up this morning and I feel like my body's like 5 minutes that way, fully freaking anterior rotated. And I'm squatting like this. Like, where's my ass? Why is my ass underneath me? God damn, man. How can I squat like that? Of course, if my ass is down like here, over there, how the hell am I supposed to squat upright? Of course I'm gonna bend over, man. This is the thing about anterior pelvic tilt. When you're in anterior pelvic tilt, you effectively are working with less potential for hip flexion because you've rotated your pelvis. Therefore, you start to get, I don't know if the word is correct, but you start getting hip impingement purely because of position. Because if you've rotated your pelvis this way, so now the femur has less room to work with. Whereas if it was posterior tilt, now there's more play for the femur, for the necrofemur, right? That's how it works. So if you start with huge arch in your upper back, in your lower back when you're squatting, you're gonna get to maybe halfway, 90 degree, and you're gonna get stuck. And so the only thing you can do now is go forward because you've maxed out the hip flexion. Not because you don't have any more hip flexion, because your pelvis is shit. It's not allowing you to access the maximum potential. So this is why anterior pelvic tilt is really, really bad when you're squatting. It's really bad, especially when you're starting at the top, and this is your pelvis. You're starting like this, right? Legs are down. You're starting like this. You should be starting like this. So then the femur has heaps of space to work with. But if you start like this, it starts to hit here. It doesn't have enough range. So I'm thinking about this whole quad business, and I'm like, okay, it's all sexy and hell to have really big quads. But you gotta be really, really careful that the quads are not taken away from the glutes. Because if that happens, you're essentially not doing anything. You're freaking wasting your damn time. What you ideally want is the glutes and the quads to be long and strong and to not impact the range of motion of the pelvis. That's what you want. Because if you need the glutes on your team, man. That's, you know, you cannot be a strong athlete. You can't run fast, you can't jump high, you can't squat, you can't deadlift if your glutes are not in the team, man. That's your superstar. That's your superstar. It all starts with the glutes. And I know a lot of you guys are going to say, oh, but some of the best athletes in the world do have some sort of anterior pelvic tilt. Okay, there's a degree, and maybe this is a sliding scale type of scenario, but if you have so much that you are unable to have a solid range of motion, you can't have that hip flexion. You can't tell me that a limited range of motion in the hip flexion is going to help you. Makes no sense to me. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's well and good. Grow the quads all you want. But if you're not getting the performance carryover, maybe there's something else to it. Maybe you do have enough strength in the quads for the next PR, but you can't exhibit it because you're being choked out. You're being choked out. You can't even land the damn punch. You can't even throw a punch. Your glutes are not even, they're choking out, man. You can't even get to the damn thing. So So this is like after all these years of training and thinking about training, and to me it gets to a point where it's like, my God, so much time I've spent thinking about all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, like I am legit high from these thoughts, especially when you make a connection. Even though if the connection is wrong, the act of thinking about this stuff, the act of solving the puzzle, right? Problem solving, it's like the most lucrative skill in the workforce, let's say. You don't want a robot going around doing tasks, whether it's a hospital, engineering, law, wherever the hell you're working. You want an employee, you want a colleague who is able to critically think. Otherwise, you might as well just get a freaking computer to just punch out numbers. So critical thinking, that's what I love. That's what excites me. You're sitting there, you're like puzzling yourself. You think about all these different angles. Where are the glutes? Where are the quads? Where's the insertion point? Where's the origin point? How does this work when you start to move through space? Different angles, different rotations. What's going on? And then you see people with examples of this type of build, and you're like, why isn't the guy more stronger than that? I mean, those quads, he has no problem extending his knee. I guarantee you that. Knee extension is not a problem of his, man. He's got lots of strength there. And, the fact that he's got a 250 deadlift and 180 squat, I'm like, okay, he has some sort of neural firing, but something like, if I was his coach, what would I be thinking about? I mean, obviously, I don't know the guy that well. He's just a purely aesthetic assessment of him, and just puzzling. And here I am, let's say, trying to follow in his footsteps, trying to get more tissue in the quads, and I'm like, okay, I gotta be careful here. What is going on here? Why am I feeling so shit from yesterday? Obviously, fatigue is a thing, but it's not even a fatigue. Like, if your muscle is fatigued, then, like after you did biceps yesterday, you'll pick up a certain weight, and you're gonna be like, oh shit, I can't do it. Really fatigued, cramping, DOMS, all that shit. But if you can't even like move the joint, the joint is locked for whatever reason, you're like, fuck, what's going on here, man? I'm not being limited by the muscle. I'm being limited by some other shit. And how do you work that shit out? What is going on? And this is the stuff that like I love thinking about, because it's not just about working hard, boys. Just start working real hard and get amongst it, and it's all going to be good. It's not about that anymore. It's about, you need to understand how the body operates, how it moves, and then you're like, okay, I need to do this. Because simply banging your head against the wall is not going to be, it's almost like I feel sorry for these people. And I've been that person where you work really, really hard. You're not short of motivation. You're not short of inspiration. You're not short of discipline, training, dedication. You're not short of any of that. But still you're not breaking through, you're not making something. And that's because you're not mentally, you're not intellectually 100% on par to where you need to go. And that's okay. Some people have the intellect, some people are the Einsteins of the world, but they're depressed. Every morning they can't get out of bed. They're struggling with that side of life. That's all, everyone struggles with something. For me, sometimes when I make these types of, let's say, revelations, if you want to call it that, I'm like, God damn it, man. If I knew that shit 5 years ago, where would I be today? And I like to get away from those thoughts because they're not healthy. Oh, what if we moved to America instead of Australia when we were refugees out of Yugoslavia? Oh man, could I have made the NBA? Pointless thoughts. Oh, what if LeBron played during the Jordan era? Whatever, man. It's just stupid thoughts. It doesn't help anybody. When I arrive at a destination, I'm happy I've arrived. And so right now I'm happy that I've made this connection. I'm like, okay, interesting thought. Maybe I've had similar thoughts in the past, but maybe not the final concrete conclusion that I have here, which is if you overdevelop the quads and the quads become tight, overused, from squatting every day or from bike riding every day or whatever the hell you're doing, maybe your glutes fall asleep and that's why you can't exert the maximum synergistical power through the body, right? If the quads and the glutes work together, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 3. Synergy, right? It's tiki-taka. It's almost like there's another player on the pitch. It's not just 11 versus 11, it's like 12 versus or 13 versus 11. Because there's synergy amongst everything. Xavi, Iniesta, Deco, they amplify Messi's Suarez, Neymar's runs. They amplify all of this stuff because they work together. But if you take Neymar and put him in PSG, who the hell is he? There's nobody. He's just another regular, maybe 4-star superstar, right? He doesn't have the same performance because there's no synergy amongst the pieces. And that's kind of the same thing with the quads and the glutes. If you can get them aligned perfectly, where one fires and the other one fires in perfect balance, boom. You're popping out of the blocks, you're blocking shots, you're doing the windmills, you're squatting 250 ATG high by putting the bar on the head here. That's how hard the bar is. You're feeling amazing. I love that thought, man. That thought is like so sexy to me. God. So you need to get away from thinking, quads. Let's just put some huge amount of tissue on the quads. No, man, it's not going to do that. You need to have quads and glutes together working in a team for you to have some sort of progress. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. You're going to have Allen Iverson, you're going to have Tracy McGrady, you're going to have Carmelo Anthony, you're going to have... Give me another name. Give me another name of a superstar who won scoring titles left, right, and center, jacked up 25 to 30 shots every single game. Everyone else is standing around. No one else is getting in flow, in momentum. They're just jacking up shots, getting individual accolades, and the team's doing shit. How many NBA superstars have you heard about that? Where the guy doesn't want to pass the ball. He doesn't want to get somebody else involved. No synergy at all. His career is shit. Everyone forgets about him. Oh, cool, man. No worries. You got a scoring title. Voila. That's kind of like having a superstar quad. That's cool, man. You just stand at the mirror and look at your trophies. Look at the quad. Look at my scoring title trophy. No one gives a shit, man. What's beautiful is when you have a superstar that passes the ball, gets everyone else better, and then win an NBA championship. That's the thing of beauty. That's kind of what you want in the body as well. You want that synergy between different muscles, and you have to get away from carpet bombing the quads, carpet bombing the glutes. You always need to be aware of what happens if that muscle becomes too tight or misaligned because you've added too many kilowatts. You put a freaking V12 in a Corolla and you're not doing a 9 on a quarter mile. Why is that? Well, dude, you can't do that. It doesn't work like that. The tires, the transmission, the fuel, like you don't have anything right, man. You can't do that. Anyway, bit of a thought explosion. I'm gonna listen to this myself and thinking about, because I feel like sometimes when I watch my own videos, I'm like, I make better connections. It's weird. It's almost like counseling, but you guys are like counselors. You right there. You're counseling me right now. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. See ya. Peace out.